Hi, everyone. I am Heather O'Neill here for Breaking Games with the designers of KROMA. I've got Carol,
Hi.
Seska,
Hey, how's it going?
and Kai is joining us on the line.
Hello.
And before we get going, why don't we just do a quick little intro of your full name and where we can find you, and then we'll dive right in.
Sure. My name's Carol Mertz. My pronouns, as you can see here, are she, her. And you can find me primarily on Twitter, being probably very obnoxious, at Carol Mertz. It's spelled just like my name on the screen.
Great.
We appreciate it, though.
Jessica?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Cheska. I go by she, her. You can find me online on the interwebs. I'm on Twitter at Chesky. It's CESCHIII. Yeah, I'm really excited to jump into this Q&A. So thanks for
Three
having
eyes.
us.
Three eyes? Three eyes.
Three eyes. Great. And Kai?
Yeah. Hello, I am Kai Karhu. You can find me on Twitter, not doing a whole lot, but loving to hear what people have to say. And I am Kai _Karhu on Twitter, KAI _KARHU.
Great. And I just want to direct everyone to the screen here that KROMA is at PlayKROMA. And also you can find out anything about the game, including the Kickstarter, at kromagame.com. And if you're wondering about anything about Breaking Games, it's at Breaking Games or breakinggames.com. So we are it's July. It's a heat wave in America. Mm-hmm. We all have black tank tops on. And we're in week 2 of the Kickstarter, which is exciting. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to just kind of do a deeper dive discussion with all of you. So we've asked for some questions. I've prepared some questions, and this is going to be much more about the design and the physical construction of the game rather than just how you play the game and, how can I back it? So hopefully everyone watching is excited about that. I see Vladimir here is already excited, and I think had seen you at IndieCade.
So
heck yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. So what I want to know first, and I've been curious about this whole time, is are the final rules of the game what you originally started out with when you had this concept? No.
I'm sorry for laughing so loudly.
So the concept has always been about like territory capture and territory claiming. Mm-hmm. And, the color blending has been from early on, but we went through a lot of development to get it to the rule set that we have now. And it started out much more clunky and much less elegant in gameplay. I think the earliest design that we had worked on because this was originally actually done for a design course at the NYU Game Center. And so the rule set that I think we actually submitted for that involved playing out the entire first layer before you even start playing on the second layer.
Okay.
Which, in my mind, I'm like, this is going to be like such interesting strategy to start, start thinking so early, but really ultimately it just meant that nobody knew where they were going to be able to play later on. And there wasn't like a lot of clarity around what to do on the first layer, especially because there wasn't a lot of motivation on what to place where. Okay. And so that was like one of the big motivators for us. I mean, obviously it was still beautiful. It was still fun. And that was even the version that Breaking Games first saw when they fell in love with the game. But we knew that there was room for improvement. And so we spent quite a while after that exploring a lot of different design routes.
Okay.
At the time, there was also a division between which pieces you could play when.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
There was no drawing pieces out of a bag. Everything was available at any given time, which
That's right.
Okay, so
seemed like a fun way to do it, but you end up feeling the good old analysis paralysis where you are stuck because that there is a quote unquote perfect move or optimal move, and you feel that weight of responsibility and that's it's difficult.
Yeah, that makes sense. So would these be laid out? Would they be?
Yeah.
Depending on how much time we had to prepare.
Yeah. We had 2 bowls, right, that we used. We had one phase 1 bowl and one phase 2 bowl. And that piece actually that you're holding right now, that big piece, was not even in the original game, actually. That big piece
PacMan.
and the tiniest pieces. Yeah, PacMan. But we had the large pieces were part of the first phase in like laying out the board. And then the small pieces were the second phase where you're trying to blend.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
I think there's also like when you're designing something, I think especially something that has more strategy mechanics. I think at least I definitely felt this way also within the environment that the game was being developed, but this sort of like desire to make it more complex and have these structures, right, and these rules. And I think that's actually why through playtesting we actually ended up removing some of these initial constraints that we had within our rule set, which we found actually facilitated better gameplay and better strategy as well for players, where they were able to actually plan their moves and look forward into the rest of the game, right? Yeah, but I think there's this, I don't know, there's kind of this desire to make things overly complex sometimes,
Right.
but actually making it, I think we really streamlined the rule set. Like, so we do like to say that, it's pretty easy to pick up, it's easy to explain and to get people playing, but there's inner complexity kind of within the existing rules. So,
Okay.
And the randomization of the grab bag really just adds so much texture and so much replay value. Like, you can't solve this game because there's that randomized element to it, where the original, that original design where everything's laid out. Like, I think Kai was saying, like, there's an optimal play. There's always going to be an optimal play. And with, time, of course, somebody's going to solve the game. But with that extra element of randomness added, it makes it literally impossible to solve it because you don't know what piece you're going to draw.
Yeah, and I like that, I think Jessica was saying this, that, you're still having meaningful choices, you're impacting the game, but it's not overly complex, which is fun, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think simple games are often, if not better, then far more accessible. And in this case, better, right? Like, I don't want to say all simple games are better than complex games, because there's a space for both. But even just like approaching this game, people wanted to be able to understand it immediately. And like just making those rules changes of like, you draw out of a bag now and you play anywhere that you can. That reduced the teach time down from like, a 15-minute teach to a 2-minute teach. Maybe not a full.
And then also setup and cleanup was much easier.
Sure. Sure. And I'm sure people are drawn to this. They see it, they come over, that what is this? I want to know what this is right away. And now with this new rule set, over time, I'm sure you can really tell them in 2 minutes, which is great.
Yeah. I mean, so we usually think of it as a 20-minute game. And when we played at Pieces, I taught 3 people who had never seen it before, never played it before. I taught them and they played a full game within 20 minutes. So like, I think they learned the gameplay within like 2 minutes. And you can watch that video and like see how fast it was to explain it, to like for them to pick it up immediately, like hardly any questions. And the only questions were like the details that are explained more clearly in the rules,
Yeah, that's on Breaking Games YouTube if anyone is looking for it. But that was this Saturday. There was a few different gameplays. Carol and I actually played the 2-player, which I hadn't had a chance to play yet, which was fun. And then you hosted and taught the 3-player, which was great. I guess we could kind of jump into the 2 versus 3, because on top of the fact that everything changed pretty much from your initial thought, there's also a 2 and 3-player slightly different win condition. So how did that come to be, and or which one came first?
3-player was what we started with, and I have to credit Carol here. That Carol, when we were trying to figure out how to redesign these rules for simplicity and elegance, which is of course a scary thing to do as as a designer, to be like, I want to make it simpler, and then you're like, oh no, what if people don't take us seriously because it doesn't have a giant rule book? We were trying to figure out exactly how to like make a good win condition, and we were trying to decide between just like sheer number and something that Carol came up with, which was, Carol,
yeah. So the 2-player win condition is the largest connected shape, the largest contiguous shape. As we saw in Heather, yours, and my gameplay, it's a much more head-to-head combative strategy, whereas the 3-player is just the most blended shapes on the board, which feels a lot more kind of laid back and more of a, because you're waiting longer for your turn. There's too much going on the board to like really plan those kinds of things out. But when we started looking at 2-player, when we played that way, it was much less interesting. Like the 2-player just didn't have as much tension because there's so much more space on the board. And eventually, like there was just, we started seeing this lack of motivation coming out of the 2-player. And so we tried this contiguous shape, and it really created ultimately a very different dynamic, which is very interesting because it's almost like 2 different games, right? Yeah. When you're playing 2-player versus 3-player, it's a very different experience, and you have a very different, I think, mentality as you're playing. And that ended up working quite well. Because one of our original goals when we were designing, even just originally, was like, we're building this beautiful platform, we're building this beautiful board, and we have all these great shapes. This is so abstract. Like, what if we just make tons of different ways to play with these components? And so that's kind of like that first taste of that, where like these two, it's the same rules, but it's a very different experience.
Yeah, and by the way, Carol totally kicked my butt when we played, but might have had a whole bunch of gameplays under your belt. So I mean, it was just funny. I think it was, one of those things. But one of the things I noticed playing it, as having played so many 3-player versions of it, is you're right. Like, it kind of came up quick on me that, ooh, I made a mistake there, and I'm going to have to make a complete strategy change because the way that I was lackadaisically playing the 3-player, I've got time, that was not the case. I was losing that, and it was definitely much more of a real head-to-head experience, which was interesting.
It's very intense very quickly, and if you don't play your defensive moves right, because like a lot of times in 3-player, people aren't even thinking about defensive moves. Like, they don't often need to, right? Because like things are happening so quickly. There's 2 different plays before their turn, so like a defensive move often isn't going to do a lot. But in 2-player, if you're not playing defensively, then, the other player can just stretch across the board. And it's kind of amazing how, that one different condition, it's like barely a different condition, but it is a different condition, completely changes the dynamic.
And
something else.
Go ahead, Kai. Something
else really interesting about it is that a lot of 2-player games that are abstract, complete information type games, is that those games with moves sort of are expected to be like zero sum, right? And in the 2-player of KROMA, you still are playing with that 3rd color.
Yep.
And every single move is really only half of a score, so it could go to someone who's playing, or it could go to no one. And that isn't decided until the 2nd move, which is very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's not divided by, you don't remove the color that doesn't help anyone. Right.
Yeah, that was very interesting because one of the biggest defensive things to do would say, okay, magenta's not playing. I'm going to make a 2-layer magenta. Just so that there's no more green because I'm just can't get any purple or whatever's happening, right? And that's another level that it was bringing, which was interesting. So anyone who's up for a little bit more of a challenge, they should be trying this 2-player as soon as they get it. That'll be fun. Cool. So you said that the 3-player version came first, and kind of over time added in this 2-player. And when you were working with Breaking Games, they were, I assume, obviously open to having both rule sets in the game. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that when we first introduced the game to Breaking Games, I don't think that we had the 2-player mode designed at that point.
Okay.
And so they had only seen the 3-player mode. But it's yeah, like they've been very encouraging of us, like our creative license over the game and like our ability to design the game as we feel is best for it, which has been really, really nice. Because I know that they, you know, like I said, they played a completely different rule set when they started and fell in love with that. And then we came back to them and said, actually, we've been developing it and the rule set is very different now, but we think you're going to like it. And they're like, we trust you.
That's cool.
So it was a really nice privilege to have.
Yeah, we had a scary moment where we were like, we know that we all love this game and you all fell in love with this version of the game, but we think we can make it better. And then Breaking Games was like, all right, let's see. Like, go for it. Try it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think there was a talk of even releasing both rule sets, and then they played the new one and they were like, yeah, no, this one's it.
And we were like, we know.
We know. Yeah, we've been working on it.
Cool. I know you mentioned this already because we previously discussed PacMan here. So over time, I guess these acrylic pieces changed slightly. And did anything else change? Was it always the same goals? Was there not a bag? There was a bag. You know, what else changed over the time from a component level?
That's largely it. I mean, so we added a few of the larger shapes and the single triangles with some of our later iterations, and found that, you know, just having more variety in pieces really helped. I mean, it makes it that much more interesting. Balancing the pieces was a huge process.
That sounds like it, yeah.
Picking how many of what goes in the bag that took so much trial and error and so many game after game, and like counting how many pieces were left. And that's game design, right? Like that's, well, at least it's game development. But otherwise, like, I mean, actually, surprisingly, a lot of the components are still very, very similar to our earliest prototype that Kai and Temi built at the game center. It's like, you know, we still have the board, we still have like the core set of pieces, but we don't have those bowls anymore, and instead we have the bag, and the core set of pieces has expanded. We didn't remove any pieces, we just added more in, which has made it really interesting.
Well, more shapes, I guess is what I'll say. More shapes.
More shapes, yeah.
We balanced the pieces. I mean, I'm sure someone who is better at math than us can tell us exactly how it worked out. We are pretty good at math and all of that, but it was important to us to have almost every single piece played in almost every single game. Because
while still leaving space on the board, right?
Yeah. That we didn't want the game to be over most of the time just because there was no more space.
Right.
We wanted it to be over sort of at this magic point where there was no more space and it was the last piece to be played. And that's just simple game balance.
Right.
Where people aren't choosing what color to put down. Right. And so you don't want to dump the bag because there's no more room and see that there's like 5 blue pieces in there. Because that's not fair for that's just not that's not great game design. That's a little bit too random. And we balance that. I mean, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of incredible how often it turns out that it's either no pieces are left or only 1 or 2 pieces are left, which is exactly what we hoped for.
Yeah, right where you wanted it to be. That's nice. Exactly. I assume that took a lot of time getting into that point.
It did. Yeah. A lot of
we took 3 or 4 solid months of just pure development, of like constant, like hours long sessions of balance and like game design, essentially. And that extra 4 months really changed everything. It was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Is there anything, I want to get into some of the technical ends of this, but is there any other gameplay notes that you want to have viewers know or backers know about your gameplay development process? Any other thoughts? You can come back to it too.
I mean, shout outs to our mentors at the NYU Game Center. I mean, we had so many great mentors who play tested and advised. So we worked with Eric Zimmerman and Frank Lance and Naomi Clark, and help me if I'm forgetting anybody, but like those folks just were such huge sources of support throughout the process and allowed us to learn so much and grow the game in such a way that works. I mean, like it just works. It's allow me to say that this is a really well-designed game, and it's, in thanks to this team and in thanks to the mentorship that we had through the process. So
I'll say also that it'd be almost harder to find people who were at the Game Center who didn't play this.
Yeah.
Because this was in development for so long and people were so supportive of us, that students, faculty, friends, random people who somehow like found the wrong floor on an NYU tour, like all of those folks, we had so many playtesters and we got an amazing variety of people that we really couldn't have done it without any of them.
Yeah. Because we started this in our first semester of a 2-year program. And so it was in development for the majority of our time in the program. And then we continued development even after that. So it just kind of goes to show, like, when you fall in love with a project, it can really, kind of get its grips in you and kind of follow you throughout the the process, I guess.
Yes. Jessica, anything else to add? I know.
Yeah, I don't think so, but yeah, I will say, like, yeah, during that time period of like really heads down iteration and development, to touch on both of those points, we were playtesting, multiple times a week with people who were both within the Game Center community and just folks who were showing up to like the playtest events, right? So we could get new eyes on it, but also have like people who had seen previous versions also playtesting and providing feedback on what was changing and their new feelings about those changes. I think that was also really helpful. So not only to get fresh perspective, but to get like repeat playtesters who continued also during that time to be really excited about the project and excited about the changes we were making.
That's fun.
Yeah,
and people who would come back to play.
Yeah, it was really, really nice just even to see that, like, I don't know if you've ever been to a convention or a conference. You sit down to play a game demo and it's like, I don't know, it's really long and you're like, oh, this is really good, but it's really long. And like, but it's always really great as a designer to see when someone sits down to play your game and then they like want to stay and play more of it. So we would also, or they come back, right? They bring friends back. But yeah, even at playtesting, we would have people who would come back on different weeks later during the same session and want to play again. So that was also just really fantastic to see.
Yeah, that's a great sign. Yes, that's a good sign. Cool. Well, that's awesome. A little shout out to the NYU Game Center as well and everybody there. So if anyone's watching from there, awesome. The other big thing we want to talk about tonight is the fact that this is a electronic light up product too. It's not just the game. It also has light and color blending and all of these different things. So obviously you had this game idea, you had this project idea, but then you had to make the actual game.
Yeah.
So,
because
I don't know if you go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know who wants to take this first, and because I don't know where it exactly started, if it was the idea or the tech part of it. But if you just want to walk us through kind of an overview of the entire initial process.
I'll toss this to Kai because Kai was our engineering expert. I remember we started playtesting the game on an animation light board that I had, and I was like, how are we going to build what we need? And Kai was just like, oh, I got it. Don't worry about it. And then shows up with this beautiful board.
Well, at one point, someone, I believe it was Carol, I don't remember exactly. Someone just said like, "But do you think you can make it bright enough?" And I was like, "Oh, just watch."
So many LEDs.
And so I also had to buy a dimmer.
Yep.
But
Yeah, I do
Too many lights.
yeah,
take it away on that process.
I just knew, for some reason, I knew exactly what needed to happen. We did a lot of iteration on the game design, but in terms of making a triangular light board from scratch, I just knew what needed to happen, and so I did it.
Nice.
It's hard to explain. We of course had limitations because we were just people buying products off of Amazon and making things in a fab lab, and then just like gluing them all together in a Brooklyn apartment with 6 roommates,
Right.
kind of thing. But we just knew, and it worked out, and it's been kind of similar ever since.
Nice.
I mean, because like we started out by like researching, because we were starting kind of like with this triangle idea, because we were working based on inspiration from a game that I and a couple other students had put together earlier in the semester, and we're like, this is a really inspiring like visual, but let's make a game that takes that visual and takes this process even farther. And so we scrapped that inspiration game and made this completely new thing, thinking along the lines of like color blending first and foremost. And I remember we were researching games that involve color and researching games that involve light, and just couldn't find anything that did either of those things justice the way that we wanted to do them. And so we knew, like when we were talking about stacking colors, I don't know that we went straight to light in that way, but I do remember that we were like playing with transparency paper and like wet erase markers and seeing if that would work, and we're like, this is definitely not going to work unless it's backlit. And so I think this went so fast that my brain is like a complete blur as far as like that early research process, because that research was fast. If that research was like days and the original design was weeks, because again, this was for a class, we had to be working that quickly. And so
you were also balancing the size of the board too.
Yes, we were also balancing. Yeah, so that would
work.
Yeah, that was when we were working on transparency paper and working with the animation light board, because I use for a lot of times when I do pencil and paper animations, I've got this light board, and I was just like, I have something we can try to see if backlighting works.
Right.
And so, we were just like, this is great. And the first thing that we actually wound up doing, the first piece of the puzzle, was realizing that the transparency paper wasn't enough, and we decided to cut our own pieces. So we ordered the acrylic from Canal Plastics in Manhattan and picked it up, and were amazed that it blended so well without without any trial or error. It just happened to be the right set of colors. And so we just designed these shapes with Illustrator, took it into the makerspace, cut our shapes, and then started playing with them on this transparency paper grid on top of this, really, really simple, cheap, $20 animation light board. And that was where we did the majority of early development. And then Kai built that board like the night before the project was due, and she brought it in, and our jaws just dropped, and we were like, holy hell, like our professor actually asked, where did you find a board to buy that fits your game so perfectly? We're like,
and we said, we made it. And they said, yeah, but who made it for you? And we were like, wait, no, we made it. We manufactured this.
Kai and Temmie,
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it worked out so beautifully, and was just such a gorgeous, breathtaking project that we remain to be very proud of. And the design of the current retail board isn't that different, right, from
This
your
is
engineering
slightly different than what you're going to see in the final, but I mean, it's pretty nice, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
and yours, there's some images if people scroll through your Twitter, especially a good spot to look for that. And of course, on the Kickstarter page, it was a
So
thicker
anyone who's-
model, but it was pretty close to what we have as the final, I have to say.
Yeah, what I was going to say is anyone who has played a version of this game at a convention, you know, Indiecade, PAX, GDC, anyone who's played it, it's going to feel very similar. You aren't going to feel, you know, taken aback by like, oh, this isn't at all like what I remember. It feels very, very true to what you played before, but has a lot more conveniences built into it, such as the fact that it doesn't have to be plugged in, or anything like that, you know.
And I think this is a dimmer, which I think, Kai, you hinted on this before about the lights, but
well, yeah, I had it plugged into a dimmer. It was like, it was in between the board and the outlet. There was a separate dimmer plugged in that got to, you know.
And is that because whatever LEDs you got were way too bright without that dimmer?
It was just an option. It was nice to have the modularity because it was a pretty cheap piece to add in while it was plugged in.
Right.
And also I had felt the challenge of, could you make it bright enough? And I was like, oh, just watch. So
like, we could play it in pitch black, no problem. That's awesome. So that's cool. So it was obviously a culmination of a lot of knowledge, previous knowledge that you all had going into this program, probably, and it just kind of coming together really well with everybody's different expertise culminating here, which is awesome. So that's really cool. I know that this production version is going to have a dimmer on it. It's USB charged instead of battery, or not battery, plugged in. But otherwise, it's very similar to what you made. There's the same acrylic pieces. It's the bag. It's the same board size. So so anyone who is looking for that, you know, that's exciting. That's going to be very similar to your original.
It feels
original
similar,
edition.
but like, you know, retail, because everything that everybody's played so far has been handmade, which is very cool and very beautiful. But like, you know, we had like sometimes wires just sticking out the back, you know, and like little cut areas.
I believe
the wire,
the binder clip. Yeah, binder clip and packing tape to keep the
so
cord.
much packing tape.
So much packing tape.
Yeah, no packing tape on the
They
retail
traveled
version.
around the world and did great, but you know, the retail version, of course, will be professional and
solid.
And I've mentioned this on one of the streams before, but I forget which one. I've had Carol's prototype version for the last few months while I'm helping with this Kickstarter, and the USB charges the battery for a very long time. You know, you can keep it for a few weeks to a month, you know, and it is still going, which is awesome. So you can take it outside, you can take it down to the beach for the weekend, and if you forgot the USB, it's probably going to be okay.
Yeah, totally.
You can also, if you feel the need, you can plug it into a like portable power pack.
Oh yeah,
what I've done, where you know the extra phone charger that you've got laying around, you can just give it a quick charge without actually needing to be inside and, you know, using an actual outlet.
Nice.
Any power source will work.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. I'm trying to think if there's any other that's the end of my questions about the technical end of this. And it sounds like once you had that physical prototype design, that's what you went with and maybe made more of them. But that was the same design. It was just maybe potentially a few more that you constructed, correct?
Yeah, we wound up building, what did we do? We had that original one, which was actually a slightly larger size, and then we streamlined it so that we could fit more on the boards that we were purchasing. So like the first one that we just did one board on like all of the acrylic that we purchased. And then we re-engineered it so that we could fit more onto a single board, so that we could fit 3 with a single set, which was like, it just made it so much easier. So we then made, I think, 3 at once and then another 3 later on down the road, each of those looking a little bit different in sets. But like, y'all who have played at conferences and conventions have probably seen one of those like later 6 iterations. But yeah, it was such a process. Those things were time consuming to put together, as you can imagine, like so many layers of different kinds of plastics.
Yep. I'm sure.
So much glue.
So much glue.
So much glue.
Maybe some packing tape, maybe some duct tape. We don't know. Binder clips. So speaking of, this was obviously at Indiecade. It was at GDC. It was at PAX East. And I believe it was 2019, Indiecade, you won, was it fan favorite? Is that what they call it?
It was audience choice.
Audience choice, yes, which is fan favorite, basically.
Yeah.
Which is very exciting. So I know we talked about this on the launch day, but I just want to bring this up again because it's very exciting. You were all floored and did not see this coming, did you? But I guess you could have seen it coming because everybody kept coming back and having such a good time. So
like
in
never
hindsight,
any downtime. And kudos to Kai, because like I was running, I think 3 at different points, 3 different games at that show. Wow. And Kai just ran KROMA like the entire time, just being like total KROMA boss. And so we would not have gotten audience choice if it wasn't for her just like taking it on the chin and working so hard through both of those days.
Good job.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I mean, I will say it was more down to the audience than it was to me.
Well,
but
I mean, the audience wouldn't have been able to play if you weren't there helping them play. But yeah, it was like such an incredible thing to like be there and just see lines of people waiting to play and coming back to play again, and like not even having to ask like, hey, there's an audience choice, like there's an audience choice award. They're like, oh yeah, I already filled it out. Like,
right. Like they were on
amazing. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, awesome. I have a couple fun questions now for you just to kind of wrap this up. Being that you've traveled around different conventions, you've been working on this since your program at NYU, I'm wondering if any one of you had taken this to kind of a unique location and played it with anyone or with a unique group of people. Like, have you, I think you took it to Europe, I believe. Like, have you played it outside? Have you played it at a bar? Anything like that ever happened with it over the years?
So, Kai's the one who took it to Europe for Indiecade Europe. I know that I've taken it to a number of like just like local meetups and gotten to play, but like obviously like that was before I had the battery powered version.
Yeah.
And so the one that we made ourselves is got to be plugged in. So
yeah,
I cannot wait until I can take it to like backyard hangouts and like patio chills and stuff. But the places I've taken it to like demo nights at the library and things like that. It's been really, really nice to see different kinds of folks play.
Yeah, and obviously COVID has thrown a year and a half monkey wrench into your plans. But but before that,
I haven't taken it anywhere recently except for Pieces Board Game Bar and Cafe in St. Louis.
Exactly.
So I have had people play it in the car, in the back seat, which has been fun. I've had people play it outside near fire pits. I had to stop a group of people recently from trying to play it in the hot tub.
Oh, yeah.
No,
not waterproof.
Yeah.
No. They were like, but we think we can. And I was like, no, we're not going to try it.
Bad plan.
So near a fire pit, on the lawn. A lot of this was all done up in the mountains in Colorado. I went to a big batch party weekend for an amazing couple. But it's been played many, many places. It has not yet been played on a boat that I can think of.
That we know of.
But yeah, it's been played all over, and not having to plug it into a wall has been a game changer.
Yeah, I want like a bingo card that, you get to like scratch off everywhere that you've played it and like get a little bingo. That would be fun. That's fun. Awesome. Now, for the Kickstarter, you're not just offering the standard white version. There's also the obsidian black frame. So if you were to choose right now, obviously you get them, so it's okay. But if you had to buy one, which would you prefer? Would you want to stick with your standard white that you designed, or would you switch it up and go for the black one?
I think that's such a tough question, because I feel like the white is so familiar and feels very kind of like iconic, right, to me, as being representative of KROMA. But also the obsidian is like, it's new and it's cool, and I feel like it looks very sleek. I think it's really going to be up to, like, I don't know, because as we talked about last time we chatted, thinking about, like, if people do leave this out because it's a really, beautiful thing on top of being a fantastic game. I am someone who likes to have a lot of, like, darker and like black trinkets and things, and I feel like it'll just kind of like match the overall kind of aesthetic of my home a little bit more.
She says in an all white room.
I know, I actually just noticed, so I'm actually at the beach right now, so
but I'm like, that's not your house, so it's okay.
No, it's just like, for this home I would purchase the white one.
Yes.
I mean, I think you can tell here that, like, I've got a lot of dark furniture, so the obsidian I'm very excited to get my hands on and see, because, like, it's just an idea in our heads. We've never seen it. It's
exactly.
It looks like, like in theory, like, it's really gonna help make the pieces really stand out, I think, like, because they're gonna, like, really, I just feel like they're coming forward with the frame kind of like out of the way. But then I think, like, that contrast is gonna just be really striking.
Yeah. And Kai actually had the idea to do the obsidian. So Kai, what are your thoughts?
Well, so I currently am housing all, like, 5 different prototypes that we've had that are all white. So I can't say that my instinct, of course, has been to, like, match my wonderful high-class IKEA furniture, which is all white. However, because I already have, like, 5 white ones, I gotta say I'm so curious about the black. Like, none of us designers even have.
Right? It doesn't exist yet.
We've never seen it. It seems so special to us.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
That's fun. Yeah, so that's exciting. And once that's out, that's going to be really cool.
On the other hand, white, of course, is tried and true and beautiful.
Yeah. I know it's hard.
I think we're all excited about the obsidian just because it's novel, and we already have the white frame. Everybody
has to say, like, what color Calyx shelf do you have? Okay, I got a white one. I guess I need the white. Carol needs the black, Awesome. Another tough question, and this might be really, really hard. If you had to choose between orange, green, and purple, what team are you on?
I feel like Carol and I always fight over purple. My hair is literally purple.
Both be purple. You can both be purple.
Purple's one of my favorite colors. I always feel if I play a different color, I always get really confused.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 purples.
Green is my second favorite, but I mean, no offense to orange, but I'm a big fan of purple.
Kai, how about you?
Oh man, I feel like on all of these questions, I'm just jumping on the bandwagon. Purple. I like that purple. On the other hand, like, this is the thing where the fans actually get to make the decision instead of the designers.
Yep.
So just because the 3 of us are all like purple, this is, true fan contribution.
Right.
And I'm excited to have any color that the fans have chosen. Right. And I want to fulfill their dreams.
Yeah. So far, purple is in the lead with all of the votes in as of yesterday. So it could stay purple. We don't know yet. And if you did not vote and you don't want it to be purple, everybody, you better get out there. I'm partial to orange only because I have a company that one of the colors is orange. So I see a lot of orange in my house. I have little orange sunglasses. So that's what I would pick. Awesome. Well, this is great. I'm excited to see where this goes. And everyone who hasn't checked out the Kickstarter yet, please do so. KROMAgame.com will redirect you there. And you can also vote for the color USB cord that you want. And right now, purple's winning. Let's go through just real quick again and say our goodbyes. And if there's anything else you want to plug or add, go for it. And we'll start with Carol.
Yeah, thank you again so much for watching. Once again, you can find me on Twitter if you like to keep up with all of my garbage things that I say. It's at Carol Mertz. Thank you.
Cheska?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Cheska. So I am mostly currently working in the digital game space. So I have some upcoming, exciting independent projects I'm working on. And if you want to hear more about those, I'm on Twitter at Chesky. So that's CEHCESCHIII. It's been a very long day. Three eyes. Yeah, and you can also find me on the Code Coven Twitter, where I teach and run accelerator and incubator programs for people who want to get into the games industry. So we are at code_coven on Twitter.
Great. And Kai?
Yeah. Still me, still Kai Karhu. So KAI_KARHU. Yeah. You can find me on Twitter. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. And yes, and everybody, of course, at Play KROMA, and that is also on your Instagram and your TikTok as well as Twitter. And everybody check out KROMA. And if you've got the weekend off, it's a holiday weekend, go check it out this weekend. There's a lot of video content that we've put up, further interviews with the designers that you can go ahead and check out. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining me, Carol, Cheska, and Kai. This was great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
This is always really fun.
All right.